Well, hello and welcome to the Plymouth Raiders YouTube channel for what is going to be a YouTube special. I'm Pabs. I'm joined as always by Coach Paul Nicholson. Fill us in, Coach.
Well, look, we're lucky enough to have Jamie Burchell, the one and only Jamie Burchell, with us today. Raiders fans, he needs no introduction. You know, Jamie's someone I've watched play. I've spent many of times on the front row watching him play, and I've spent many a time sat at a bar having a drink with him. So I kind of went full circle with Jamie. Jamie, welcome to the show, mate.
Cheers, mate. It's good to be here.
So the plan is today is simple. I've got a load of photos which I've dug up from archives, social media, all sorts of places. And I'm just going to go through these photos with Jamie and try and reminisce a little bit with him and try and just see if I can spark some sort of either interesting or funny moments or just a nice story that goes with these pictures, because this is all about celebrating the 1000th game. So Sunday is the 1000th game against home to Glasgow Rocks. It's the 1000th league game for Plymouth Raiders. So this is more of a reminisce, Jamie, let's say. So
it sounds good. I think the hardest thing for me will be just to keep it brief. I mean, a lot of my teammates or former teammates that hopefully going to watch this will tell you that I used to be able to tell stories for days about.
You don't need to tell me, mate.
Yeah, about certain plays, certain games, certain dunks, and people are like, how do you remember that from years ago? But I do like to reminisce. This is right up my alley.
So what was your first season? What year was that?
99, 2000. So yeah, 99, 2000. I played until 2013. So I'd have been 12-13 season.
Yeah.
And then I had obviously a year out after I graduated from Marjons. I had a year out playing at Chester Jets in the BBL, and of course the Raiders at that time weren't in the BBL, so it was a really good opportunity to kind of step up and see what the difference was like in the BBL in those days, and it was a big difference.
Right. So, well, Pablo, if you don't mind, have you got any questions before I unveil?
No, let's get
Unveil
I'm interested to see these photos as much as anybody else, really.
Yeah, some of them are very interesting. I'll tell you that now. Right. Let me share my screen and let's start off. Oh, hello. That's not worked, is it? Hey, here we go.
Oh, hello.
Look.
It's gone. It's back.
Look at that.
Wow.
It's a photo.
Look at that logo.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm rocking the logo now.
Oh, mate. Yeah.
Oh, love that. So, without,
I mean, the first thing that will jump out, for everyone is obviously the lack of hair now compared to then. But I'm amazed that I would have known that Damien would have been taking the photos that day. So why I didn't do my hair, I have no idea. And just absolutely, yeah, that's an absolute shocker. And I'm disappointed you started with that one, to be honest.
Start with a bang, mate. So these I dug these up in the office actually, and I got the full squad for you right now. So I'll just flick through the full squad of photos.
Wait, can I just ask?
Oh, yes.
Not, is it? I thought that on the image,
it's not before and after, mate. No.
No, the Wallaroos and the Plymouth adverts and the BBL thing was on the image. Was that all on the jersey?
Kudaroos, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah,
they look like hot jerseys as well, like as in physically hot and staticky to wear.
Well, what I used to remember about those jerseys were that a lot of the players they weren't proper like vests, so
okay.
They were like in that style. They were like cut off at the shoulder, so people used to like roll them over, tuck them in, just so that the guns and the shoulders looked a bit bigger.
What year was this?
I think that must have been. I reckon that was around 2006.
Yeah, I think so. I'll show you the rest of the squad. Look. So obviously you had Gavin Love on the first one. You got Jean and you got Ali Goul.
Yeah.
Graham Nesbitt, oh my days. Mark Woodhouse. DeAnton Beasley, Jeff Danchi, Antti Gaydon, and of course Drew and big Carlton Aaron, the big man.
Yeah.
Drew Lasker looks like a child.
He still does.
It brings back a lot of memories. I've got a feeling that season, I've got a feeling, or around that time, was when we had our best ever league finish. I think we finished third. Whether it's that particular season, but it was around the time where all of those players were with the Raiders. We finished third, and was the highest under Gary Stronek. Was the highest ever finish.
I tried to explain to people, right, how big Carlton Aaron was, right, and the way I described him was, I was
like Draymond Green.
I was walking to the court, and he was walking out of the court, so in the main foyer of pavilions, and he walked past me.
I was just about to ask, you were walking to court. I was like, what?
No,
what
to the basketball court, court, right? Okay, and he just saw me, and he grabbed me, put me under one arm like a plank of wood, and carried me back to the basketball court just because he could, and then just put me down on the floor. And I'm like, what just happened? Like, this guy was huge, Birch, wasn't he?
He was. I mean, obviously he came in. I remember we had a little bit of a workout at the pavilions, because right around the time that we used to have our summer camp at the pavilions for the kids, we used to have 50 or 60 kids to the summer camp at the pavilions. We used to have like scrimmages or whatever afterwards, and it was right around the time that the players, particularly imports, would come in. And I remember Carlton coming in and just thinking, oh my goodness, this guy is. I remember I played with some big dudes like imports, and we'd had like Terence Durham a couple of years before that. Who, I mean, Terence was a monster in certain ways.
We'll go into that.
Yeah, but Carlton was different in that he was legit 6'9", 6'10". He had it's something ridiculous, like size 21 feet or something like that, which I'll tell you about in a minute. I'll get to that. And but just like shoulders the size of your head. And I remember him doing this workout, and people like me and other people at the time who 6'5", 6'6", like just couldn't do anything with him because the sheer size of the guy. But he did it, and I remember quite a few of the directors came to really kind of marvel at this guy and see who Gary just signed. And it became apparent that he wasn't just big; he had a beautiful touch around the basket. He had good footwork. He was a really good rebounder. And he went on really to kind of dominate the league physically, a completely different way than Terence Durham, but his size. I remember one game, I think whether it was a pre-season game, we went to Reading. It must have been a pre-season game or possibly a cup game. And I remember a couple of the Reading Americans afterwards. We were eating, and we were sat down close to them, and I just overheard them saying, "That's the biggest guy I've ever played against in my life." And these are guys that played like college basketball, Division I, and they were at awe. And away from the basketball court, I remember there was Myron Riley and myself. We took Carlton out, into town, and you'd see it, we'd walk into a bar or a club, and you just see the bouncers who are normally the biggest guys in the bar. They would, they'd see him walk past, and they were like just in awe of the guy's size. But I was talking about his feet. I was only saying that because we used to share the back seat on the coach.
What, with his shoes?
Well, no, yeah. So I would have one seat on the back tucked into the corner, and Carlton would have the other 4 or 5, where he was sat on the other end of the seats on the back of the bus, with his feet literally almost draped over my legs as I was just kind of sat like this. And I'd have to say, "Come on." And he'd take his shoes off, and I'd be like, "Come on, I really don't need those size 22s anywhere near me at the moment," But he was just, when he put his mind to it, he was just, I've never seen or played with anyone as big and as dominant. He was Baby Shaq.
Oh, Happy for me to move on, Pablo?
Go for it. Yeah.
I like to hear your feedback on some of these photos as well, because some of them you may never have seen before. What about this?
Oh my word!
What about this
I work
jersey?
for City Bus.
Plymouth City Bus Raiders, but on the back is none other than Jamie Loveridge.
A guy that I looked up to a lot. When I first came into the team in the club in 1999-2000, James. Well, he's another one that's a James, like I am, but as soon as he started playing for Raiders, I guess everyone started calling him Jamie for some reason. So he's both him and I are Jameses, but are now known as Jamie. But he was a guy that had already been doing work around NBL Division 1. He was an all-star, one of the top English forwards. And so when I came in, I really looked up to him. And back in those days, there used to be a almost like a basketball newspaper called Slam Dunk. And
yes, I've got loads of those.
Yeah, I used to buy, I used to go to the newsagents every Friday and buy it. I think it was only like a couple of pounds or something like that. But
if that.
Yeah, they would have all like NBA stories and things, about Michael Jordan, Hakeem Olajuwon, or Magic Johnson, all these guys. But then at the back, it had like the British basketball section. So you had game stats from the BBL, but also like the NBL. So I was studying that stuff, and I was looking at all these teams and looking at the names, and I'd obviously Loveridge in the top 3 scorers, and so when I came to Plymouth, he was one that I really wanted to kind of pick his brains and and watch him play. And he got injured in my first year, so that probably helped me in some ways kind of get onto the 10 that actually dressed. So it's partly down to the fact that he kind of hurt his ankle that first year that I was able to kind of be involved a little bit more than I normally would have. But a great guy, one of the funniest guys you'll meet as well. But yeah, what a player, what footwork, just had it all. And the only thing I'm sorry for is kind of that he, because of the eras, he was unable to play in the BBL, because I think had he had the opportunity to kind of play full time, he would have, he would have gone on to be one of the better British players in the league at that time.
Yeah, for sure.
He didn't even play full time.
I'm trying to think. He was probably at Marjon, so he was probably one of the students at that time.
Sure. And
of course we're in the NBL, so obviously it was a lot different as far as players being paid, and they were getting. I mean, I remember when I first played for the Raiders in '99, every player pretty much got something. I think I got paid because I was at Marjon's. I think I got £20 a game.
Really?
So so I was looking at the fixtures to see when we had the double headers at home, because I was like, that's 40 quid that weekend. That's my going out money for on Union Street.
We'll get onto that later as well, so don't worry. Okay, so this next picture is none other than the BBL show hosts right here.
Wow.
Jay Marriott and Drew Lasker.
Jay Marriott's wearing those sleeves you can buy in the novelty shop. Look.
Oh, that's priceless. But these two boys, they've done pretty well for themselves. But you played with both of them, and you were good friends with both of them as well, weren't you, Jamie?
Yeah, I mean, I remember Drew coming in the summer of I believe 2005, and actually I wasn't able to play until for a few months at the beginning of that season, because I had a beach accident in which I actually ruptured my spleen, and it was a really serious injury I got from some stupid beach gymnastics involving someone called Alex Putman landing on me, and so basically a few days later I had awful stomach pains, and it turned into a ruptured spleen, which almost ended my career. If had I had it removed, I wouldn't have played again. So I remember Drew coming in, and I was having to kind of watch for the first few months, and I remember him asking me, "Burch, what kind of because I was doing like the warm-up, so I wasn't doing any of the playing, but I was kind of doing a little bit of the running just to try and stay in shape, but then I'd have to sit out. So I remember Drew saying to me in the first, but Burch, what kind of game have you got? And I'm like, well, it's kind of like high flying above the rim, like super quick, you got anything on the court. And he would kind of give me that, no, it's not, is it? But I was like, no. Drew came in and he was just what we needed. Before Drew came in, we were a decent team. We had an all British guard lineup with Gavin Love and Ali Gall, which obviously, those two guys, at that time were kind of two of the better British players. I think Gary kind of saw that we were maybe lacking in certain areas. So when he came in, he was that, really explosive, could do it on both ends of the floor. He was ultra athletic. He would dunk on anyone. He had no fear about getting into the lane and just taking off and dunking on people. He had a good 3-point shot. I mean, that he started, which kind of moved Ali kind of out of the starting lineup now and again at the beginning. But I think that kind of helped us as a team because Ali could be that impact 3-point bomber, which obviously he was, he's probably still up there for 3-pointers made, definitely attempted in Raiders all-time history. So Drew came in and at that time he was exactly what we needed at the 2 spot, but obviously he was versatile that you could put him at the 1 if needs be. But really, ultra athletic, but also a lockdown defender on the other end.
So Pabs, like Drew still actually holds the record for Raiders all-time points scored.
He's the record holder. I know he's got the record for a season as well. It's like 650 points or something.
Yeah.
Just in the league, that is.
Crazy scorer. Yeah.
But then the other side of that is that for a couple of the seasons he joined us late. Mm-hmm. A couple of those seasons he I remember the one season he came in not until probably November, December time, because when was that? 2009,
2010. He played 25 games.
Yeah, when Eric Flato got injured, when he had that freak dead leg, which turned into a horrific leg injury, when he could have lost his leg. It's all Anthony Rowe's fault for sticking his knee into his thigh in training.
Well, so obviously you got Jay in the picture, but we'll get on to Jay in a minute because there's another photo of Jay further down the line, so we'll check that out in a bit.
Okay.
So here we go. What's next for us? My little roulette wheel of pictures. Ooh, look at that team. Look at that team.
I'm trying to work out, this would have been, I'm guessing, this would have been the last season in the NBL.
Perhaps you recognise anyone, Pablo? Have a look through. See if there's anyone that you recognise.
Well, Mr. Burchell there, obviously, number 7.
Yeah.
Gavin Love at the front.
Yeah.
You want me to go through?
What about number 14? Do you recognise number 14, Pablo?
I'm looking at him.
Does he look familiar?
He does look familiar.
You'll see why. Go on, Birch.
So I'm gonna have to move myself on here. Oh, okay, it's Gary. Yeah, so back row, left to right, you've got the absolute monster that is Terence Durham.
Oh, yeah.
You've got obviously myself. Next to me, you've got Mr. Versatile, the glue that held Raiders together for probably, I think, 7 seasons.
For sure.
DeAntoine Cat Beasley, absolute legend, big Liverpool fan as well. So that's why we keep in touch a lot at the moment. I speak to Cat probably once a week. Roderick Wellington, number 12. So ex Sutton Pumas. I remember Roderick was kind of, it was super athletic. He was my housemate at Marjon's, along with Dean Williams. We were kind of inseparable for kind of 3 years when we were all at Marjon's. But I remember Dean absolutely killed the Raiders, put us out of the playoffs, playing for
Guildford
Sutton, alongside number 13 Gareth Laws down there, who also played for Sutton. Put us out of the playoffs in the first round in my first season, and then Roderick joined the Raiders in my second season. Next to him is Deng Deng, brother of Luol Deng.
Abu Aju
Deng. and quite a few other siblings as well that were.
I saw Aju. I've got one of Aju's warm-up jerseys.
Well, one of the funny thing about Deng, who's a good 6'6". I remember I measured his wings. He had something like a 7'3" wingspan.
That was ridiculous.
Blocked everything in sight, but he was the runt of the family at 6'6". So he used to. I mean, yeah, we used to laugh at the fact that he was the oldest sibling, and yet he was the one that didn't grow to be 6'9" or above. Obviously, you've got Gary Stronek, legendary coach, legendary Raiders player, a guy that I still speak to, and all these years later, I still don't call him Gary, I call him Coach. You've got Dean Williams, number 5. You can't see his number, but number 5, bottom left. Mark Cahill, who was at the time he was a PE teacher at Ivy Bridge, went on to become a head teacher of a couple of secondary schools. You've got obviously Gavin Love, Gareth Laws, I mentioned, and my best buddy there, number 15, Myron Riley, who I persuaded to come down to Plymouth from Birmingham, where he was playing with the Bullets.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, that's
another hyper athletic guy back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've known Myron now since probably 1997, and back in the day, he was a guy that was going to take off from the free throw line and dunk on you in practice, and just unbelievable athlete. People can remember that far back.
So this is the last year in NBL.
Yeah, I think this is, definitely, because this is 2003-04.
Oh, okay.
Because I came back from Chester 2002-03. I played at Chester, and then 2003-04. This was the final year before we entered the BBL.
That's a ridiculous NBL team.
The other thing, I mean, I was going to come to that because I saw another picture where we won the league, and I've got the green hair.
I was saving that one.
One thing I remember about, I can't remember whether it was this season, but that gym is the old Estover gym.
Yeah, I remember doing camps there.
Horrible floor, slippy as anything. But I have nightmares because we used to have to train there from 9 till 11 on a Tuesday night, and then we would train at the Devonshire at 9 o'clock the next morning, and you were still like aching from like a hard practice only kind of a few hours before. And it was one of those ones that once we got that Wednesday practice out of the way, the Devonshire, you go like ice your knees, ankles, but I mean, if you look at this team, what an NBL team this was, what a Division 1 team this was. I mean, if that team had stayed completely together and went, because that team kind of broke up the following season when we joined the BBL, and obviously I mean, one thing about this team, I remember Deng left, Roderick, who was a starter on this team, and Dean, who was the starting 2 guard. Those guys left. So I remember thinking that summer, and I've been speaking to Gary, this before we went to the BBL, that the following year, I mean, I did contribute quite a bit. This is probably my biggest contribution to the Raiders over the years, was probably this season. And I remember thinking and having those conversations with Gary, and him saying, look, Division 1 next year, you're really going to contribute more because we've got guys like Roderick leaving, Dean leaving, Deng leaving. And then, of course, we went to the BBL, which meant we had more import players coming in. And that kind of, that hurt me as far as my playing time. It was almost like I could have done with another couple of years playing in Division 1 before making that step up. But obviously, it wasn't to be.
Right, let's move swiftly on. We this picture here, right? So this picture was just simply just to say, do you remember when fans used to have banners, and actually go wild in crowds, rather than like flags, banners, balloons? It was mad. Like, what's your best fan experience, Birch?
The pavilions. I can't remember who I was saying this to the other day, but I was saying, I think we drove past the pavilions, and I remember saying to someone, God, there was no, for me personally, there was no better place anywhere to play. There was something special about playing in front of a packed pavilions, as loud as it got, but also the fact that you were playing kind of in front of, you know, many faces that you knew. But I also remember some of the, you know, the amount of people that we used to take to finals. I remember the first final that I went to, I believe, was Wembley in 2001.
Okay.
I'll be right, 2001 season. And I just remember, and that was, for me, that was the first time that we had got to a final. We played Teesside in the Division 1 playoff final, and it was at Wembley. So you had the BBL final that was there before. I can't remember who was playing. It might have been London Towers. Can't remember who else. But I just remember looking up, and you had all like the BBL fans, but then you looked up into the rafters of Wembley Arena,
The riffraff.
and just seeing a sea of green and how loud they were. And I'm thinking, actually, like, even though we're Division 1, like these fans are just like stealing the show as far as the noise they were making, the fact that it was just a section of green. And just seeing the amount of, I can't remember who the coaches that we used back in the day, but there must have been something like 10 coaches of Raiders fans, all in green and with green banners and green balloons and green wigs, and it was the same when we won the BBL trophy in 2007. But the fact that up in Newcastle, the fact that we won that, and that was the kind of the top level of British basketball, that was the most special game.
I found that I think I found the program to that the other day in the office as well.
Yeah,
I have to dig that one up.
Yeah, there is a the full game video as well, which I haven't seen probably since about 2008, which I'd love to see it, but it was there's a little video on YouTube, but it doesn't show kind of any of the game footage, no. but it's out there somewhere, I'm sure. We'll
find it. Someone send it to Birch. There you go. This is your plea.
Or upload it to YouTube so we can all have a watch. Yeah. But there's some. I can already see some faces in some of those pictures. I can see in that picture on the left, I can see a very young Luke Johnson.
Who is his haircut?
Bottom left with the mini hoop above his head. Yeah. And I remember saying to Luke, he's one of the best 10-year-old basketball players I ever saw. And he knows that. I remember coaching him or doing some tournaments with him, and he was just an outstanding talent at that age. He was one of the best I've ever seen.
All right, we ready for this? Let's go through what we got next. Here we go. So do you have anything to add on this one, or just maybe the antics of young Foxy, shall we say, got up to?
I was just trying to look at, and I was trying to remember. So NBL conference. So I'm guessing that must have been around 2000, 2001. But I don't actually remember that particular game. Foxy being kind of sent off by Gary. I know he's been kind of kicked out once or twice by the referees, not by our own coach. So. Yeah. Not sure what he did, but to be honest, I'll trust Gary's judgment on this one.
I think that's probably the wisest thing to do.
Right. Oh, it's got quotes. Wait, it's got quotes from Foxy. Right. How?
Oh, honestly, mate, Foxy was...
I would never have done anything to jeopardise the game. We were 30 points up and the match was won. Wow.
He probably pulled someone's shorts down or something. Right, that's what he did.
I mean that's
during a free throw. Yeah,
one that I do remember, and obviously he's broken a couple of backboards, smashed a couple of backboards.
Yes,
dunk as well. So, in fact, I think I was commentating on TV for both of those times. Yeah, he's been known to get into a little bit of trouble, but at the same time. There's no better mascot, in the country. I know it's been said, but it's
100%.
not just in the Raiders games, but the fact that obviously he's been up to kind of BBL finals, and and he's been foxy when Raiders haven't even been there.
So just to word this article, sorry, Jamie. So he basically took a coat from the crowd and he put it over the referee's head.
I can see Roger Lloyd's name in there as well.
And apparently then the player of the other team from Teesside pushed Foxy over.
Yeah, that I could see. I think that was Roger Lloyd, who was a Sutton player and a very good player as well. Super athletic guy. But he was always a pantomime. Roger Lloyd was always a pantomime villain when he came to the pavilions. All the crowd loved
I've just read he pulled his shorts down. Pulled Roger Lloyd's shorts down.
So that was the first time he had done it. The second time he did that was in the BBL, where I think it was Martel McLemore.
It was, yes, it was, yeah.
And there was more like that. That was more. The thing is, the difference between him doing that in the NBL in 2000 to doing it in the BBL a few years later, he got into a little bit more trouble during the BBL, the BBL version. And I think it might have even made national news or something.
I think it did, yeah. So moving on from Foxy's antics.
Fantastic.
So we'll keep it.
Whoa! Look at those jerseys.
Kind of brief on this one, mate. I just want to.
Are they Hosanna jerseys? No, they're not, are they?
No, those jerseys actually were when the NBA branched out to part of their website was NBA UK.
That's the logo, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So that season we played. That's like a legitimate jersey, and we were sponsored by the NBA UK.
Wow.
And so we had those. So I mean, it was pretty cool to play with the logo.
I have that jersey in the office. I have the one with Samuels written on the back.
Drew?
Mm-hmm.
It's a number 15 top left number, or next to Bob Carrick, God rest his soul, and Pete Snowpeck, who was team manager. Drew Samuels, number 15, only played one season, but him and I really hit it off. And actually, I visited his home in New York a few times around that time, and he was almost like a street ball legend in Queens, New York, and he was a real hard-nosed guy. Averaged in the BBI, averaged probably 23 and 10. Obviously Jamie Loveridge, number 10. The others I mentioned, Todd Setner, number 11. Nathan Hayes, Welsh international, number 9. Obviously Todd gets a big mention. He's probably he's got to be mentioned. It's probably one of the best point guards that the Raiders have ever had. Definitely one of the best shooters that the Raiders have ever had, and I'm sure a lot of people would echo those thoughts. He was an absolute assassin with that quick left-hand pull-up. Unbelievable.
Okay, so just well, that's a similar photo to what we had recently. I believe that's the same team. Oh no, it's not. This is with Terrace, so this was the year before.
Yeah, this would have been 2000-2001 season. This was the season that we won the BBL, the NBL Division 1. It might have been the conference then, but the playoff final at Wembley Arena would have been May 2001. Yeah, I mean, God, the fresh faces there. I mean, unbelievable. I mean, I remember this season so clearly, and so it's crazy to think that this was 20 years ago. I mean, it's scary to think of that, and I'm sure the people watching this remember this game. Well, funny thing about the game at Wembley, I remember Deng forgot his shoes. It's the biggest game of the season, and
you forget your shoes.
Deng opens his bag and he's like, "I forgot my sneakers." So he asked. So one of the directors had to go up to the concourse where they were selling like basketball gear at Wembley Arena in the concourse for the fans, and like managed to somehow get him a pair of like 14s or something.
14s.
And he kind of he wore those for the game. But I remember Terence Durham that season was just an absolute monster at that level. Like he was far too good, far too strong, far too dominant to play at that level. And he must have averaged something like 16 or 17 rebounds a game. He was just an absolute monster. And in fact, I've got some Paul. I'll have to say I've got some Terence Durham highlights.
Have you?
Yeah, somewhere on Facebook or. But that needs to be seen. And I think,
because I was been looking for those as well, because I keep trying to explain to like the kids that I coach, and hey, this guy is the best big that I've seen because of how mobile he was to how big he was. It was
I'm sure we'll
unreal.
get a picture of Terence at some point. So maybe I'll wait until we get to that.
Yeah, for sure. So
I mean, again, sorry, I was just going to say to go back to give another shout out to the assistant coach Bob Carrick on the right hand side there, who was an absolutely lovely guy. Loved the Raiders. All the players loved him. He was salt of the earth. Had no issues at all in telling any of the so-called like big time imports what he felt about them not playing well Fortunately, we lost Bob, I think, in about 2002, 2003. Really unexpectedly, he passed away, which was at the time it was shocking to all of us, particularly kind of the Gary Stronek and the directors at the time. He was a lovely bloke, and he's really missed.
Yeah, that's nice touch. So moving on here. There's two big characters right here. So I'll just leave this one right here and you go for it, Birch.
Well, I mean, at the time when I came in as a 19-year-old, it wasn't Brian Briggs and it wasn't Keith Mollard. It was Mr. Briggs and Mr. Mollard. These were two of the directors of the club, and I remember in my kind of first year at Marjans, I went to Keith's house because I had to do a bit of coursework to do with kind of what it's like to run an organization. And I remember, Keith had a little office, or Mr. Mollard, I should say, had a little office in a cupboard underneath his stairs, and that's how we ran the Raiders, and which is amazing. But the amount of time these guys put in, and at the time, I think these guys oversaw the most successful kind of period of the Plymouth Raiders, and it's as simple as that. The Raiders had an amazing, even though we weren't in the top league at that time, the Raiders had an amazing, like the professionalism and the way the club was ran was respected all in basketball circles, and it was because of gentlemen like this. Obviously, Keith's still around, and recently he's been doing the commentary. And again, he's like the Ron Burgundy of basketball commentary. He just had that smooth voice, and it was just the amount of times I heard Keith calling a game was unbelievable. And obviously, Brian did so much for the club as well. And unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago as well. Which is very sad. But these guys both left an amazing legacy with how the club should be run.
Agree. Yeah, 100% agree. They're both absolutely fantastic people as well. Yeah, really were. So, on a lighter note, what about this picture, Birch? Talk to me about this. Pabs, anyone you recognise, Pablo?
Yeah, Mr. Ant Rowe.
Legend.
Some real attitudes in that room.
This seems like not long ago at all. This was at the Future Inn up at Derriford.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it was in the it was the kind of the pre-season media thing. And so yeah, you've got myself. I'm obviously not in the kit because I missed this entire year with my knee when I tore my ACL in 2011. So this is around 2012. So you've got Lehman Colbert in the background.
Lurking in the background.
Yeah. And obviously Ant Rowe, Paul Williams, one of the best big men I think Raiders have had. He played for Sheffield the year before and just completely just dominated us. He's amazing footwork, brilliant scorer, great player. Went on and had a really sterling career, played in Japan at a really high level, and he was a 20 and 10 guy wherever he was going to play, or at least 17, 18 and 10 everywhere. And then you've got big Thomas, the most painful elbows you could ever imagine. The scrimmages that I used to when I was rehabbing my knee, and Thomas was still around in the summer. Lithuanian guy, 7-footer, and I always wanted to guard him just because I wanted to be challenged by a legitimate big guy. But he was quick. He could really play block shots. But oh my goodness, when you got caught with one of his elbows, it was just you'd have bruises for weeks. A great guy, lovely guy, but yeah, horrendously pointy elbows.
Oh, I love that. Right, so we've talked about Deng Deng already, so we'll swiftly move on from Deng Deng. But that's a proper catalogue pose, isn't it?
Oh, it is, isn't it?
Right, that's
what an absolute legend. Like one of the loveliest and funniest guys you'll ever meet. Arguably one of the most popular players the Raiders have ever had on a game night.
What was that?
One guy, Pete Nector, guy that we
oh yeah. Yeah.
Certain number, I can't make out his number. Oh, number 10.
Number 10.
So yeah, Pete had won it all with Worthing the year before. Had a British passport. Well, I think he had like a British, Canadian, and Kiwi passport. I think. But Pete was a player, really, really athletic. Could shoot. Really top guy. Have we got time for a quick story about Pete, which is not.
We can make if it's worth it. We'll make time. Perhaps you're happy with that.
Go.
If Pete Nector watches this, if I just say,
oh, you best tag him.
The water bottle incident, he'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So I remember Pete got hooked. Gary took him out and put me into the game, and the substitution were called, and the ball was out of bounds near the Raiders bench at the pavilions. And so Pete, in his kind of horror that he had been hooked for me, was given Steve Billings would have given him his water bottle, and instead of having a sip, he threw it down, and been unknown to everyone, but most of all me, the bottle had come loose and water had sprayed out onto the court just in front of the Raiders bench. So the play was called for me to come off a screen, come towards the ball to catch and shoot in the corner. And so I'm like, in my head, I'm like, oh, this is my time to get quick buckets. Like, and so I come off, I set up the screen perfectly, come off, I'm catching the ball from the inbound, place my feet, I'm turning to try and hit a turnaround jumper, and I hit the wet spot, and literally the feet just go, bearing in mind I've been on the court for about 5 seconds, and then I come to a jump stop and my feet are like this, and there's that split second where I feel in the air I'm horizontal and come down, smash on my back, and I'm kind of like lying down, and then so then I have to get replaced literally immediately and don't play the rest of the game because my back was in bits. And I'm kind of like, after the game, I'm like, what the hell? Like what was that? Like what, why was it such a wet spot? It wasn't until kind of the following day that Pete kind of said, look, Birch, I'm really sorry. It was probably my fault, and kind of proceeded to explain it was because he threw a water bottle down and it exploded the court. But yeah, that was probably my shortest appearance ever for the Raiders. But Pete and I will still laugh about that to this day. But yeah, great player and a really good teammate.
So we talked about catalogue poses with Deng Deng. How about these bad boys?
Oh, look at the cheeky flexes there.
Wow,
that's a proper shot. Yeah, it's proper
shoot. I think we're all doing those flexes just to try and keep up with Terence Durham and his guns. Yeah.
So
Oh, Dante.
Dante Nicholas. But the reason I put this photo in is you are Plymouth. You've got green in you, Birch. Yeah, it's safe to say that. What did you think of the orange kit?
Didn't like it.
It's a real Marmite one, wasn't it? Some people loved it.
I think to be honest, if I looked at it from, if I kind of took my heart out of it and I looked at it, I'd say it's a pretty nice kit. But because I'm a nostalgic one,
It's green and white.
Raiders are green. The away kit is white.
That's
Simple
it.
as. I remember.
Enough.
Yeah, no, that's it. And,
I liked it. I want one. I want one now.
We did have.
I got one in the office.
One of my final years, we even had some blue in our away kit. It was a white kit with blue.
Oh, I remember that because Foxy wore it as well. Yes.
Yeah, it's probably up in my attic somewhere. I've got them all up in the attic somewhere. But
right, it's a no from Birch. It's a no from Birch.
No for me.
Okay. What about these bad boys?
Wow.
The 3-point cards.
Yeah, it's that. I think the one in the middle that I most probably have waved most at me. The other ones are a little bit probably before my time, but yeah, the 3-point cards were a classic, and I lost count of the amount of times I signed one of those
nice.
3-point cards as well at the end of games.
Yeah, good stuff.
I mean, when you think, I mean, that was a big change. I mean, when the fans were allowed to come onto the, I mean, it's sad really, because I'm not sure if they're allowed to anymore, but
they hang around by the fire doors there.
Yeah, but I mean, back in, I mean, Paul will tell you, back in the day, after the final buzzer, the whole court was swamped in a good way by people wanting pictures and signatures. And as a 19-year-old kid coming from the Midlands and playing for kind of, a bit of a, without being funny, a bit of a tin pot club like Solihull Chiefs, to play in front of this many people and have people coming in and asking for your signature, it was. It was amazing.
Awesome.
Who wouldn't feel special having, over 1,000 people wanting kind of pictures and signatures? It was a really special time.
Right. Okay. So who we got next? This is a photo.
It's quite creepy, isn't it?
I wasn't going to say anything, but it's like if I just turned around and someone was sat there looking at me in that angle with that look, I'm out.
But notice my chain with the 357 rifle or something bullet.
Yeah, is that bullet? Is it?
Yeah, that I got because that summer I spent in the States, in Oregon, with a really good friend of mine, a guy called Jeremy Whiteman and his family. And I spent a lot of time in Oregon, and I played a little bit there, and just in kind of local leagues and whatnot. And yeah, my friend's dad, Jim, he kind of took all of the dangerous parts of the bullet out, drilled a hole through it, and made a chain for me to take home. So.
I love it.
I mean, that again, it seems
that was just a quick one. Yeah, that was just hey, check out that photo. It's funny.
I mean, that's 22 years ago. It's just scary.
This young man here, right? So these pictures here. One, I love the picture with you and the guys, just kind of prepping them up because you were so passionate. But I love the picture with Mr. Anthony Martin. Love that one. Yeah,
I mean, again, one of the best point guards we've ever had as far as the tempo of basketball. I mean, Anthony was. I remember seeing Anthony play for Chester the year before he came to Raiders, and he was a guy we didn't know anything about, and we played Chester, and he was the fastest guy at the time that I'd ever seen go from A to B. And he pushed the ball and we just couldn't stop him. I remember sat on the bench, kind of looking down the bench, saying, like, who the hell is this guy? And then when I found out that he was, had an English passport, I thought, wow, Chester have got an absolute, diamond here. And he was lucky enough to come to Plymouth, and he actually, when I had my knee injury, he actually came in around the time I blew my knee out, and I was going to be out I was eventually out for 18 months. But the club asked me to put Anthony up for a month or so until the end of the season, and so he actually came to live with my wife and I, and he stayed in the spare room. This is obviously pre children, and so Anthony was actually a massive help to me. Just he kind of kept me company. We played Call of Duty on the Xbox. I bought myself an Xbox, even though I wasn't a big gamer, but at the time I thought I'm going to be sitting on the sofa for long periods of time. So I bought myself an Xbox, and we played Call of Duty a massive amount. We played NBA Live, and Anthony and I became good friends. And I know you and Anthony were close as well, Spike.
Yeah, he is a great guy. Great guy.
I mean, talk about a guy that could lift a whole arena with his style of play.
Right. Now, this is one of my fondest memories of Raiders, and it's a nightmare memory for me as well. And the only reason I'm saying it's a nightmare memory, so at the time, I'll share my story, Pablo, because this will make you laugh. This has got me written all over it. So I traveled to this game with Foxy, actually. But my job at the time, I worked for a radio station called Plymouth Sound. And my job was to record player interviews, all this sort of stuff. And it was in this old-fashioned recording equipment that I had to go up with. Traveled all the way there. Amazing game. Won the trophy. Beat Newcastle in Newcastle. I did all the interviews. I drove home, 6-7 hour drive. Nothing on the tape. Nothing.
Oh, no.
Missed everything. Interviewed everyone. Thought I'd done an amazing job. Basically, I just got a free trip to Newcastle and forgot to press play.
That's a shocker, because for me, this is this was the game. And I mean, at the end of the day, this was like winning the FA Cup. In football, because a few of us had won. I'm trying to look. Yeah, a few of us. So Alistair Gore, Gavin, and myself had won things. Oh, and D'Antoine possibly. Yeah, D'Antoine had as well. Galen had won things with Worthing, but we'd won things in Division 1. But this was the first time that the club, and the only time since, that the club has won top flight silverware. So for us, we'd only been in the league for maybe 3 years.
Correct. Yeah.
And to go from winning only 12 games in our first year, and then struggling for a couple of years, to go to beating Newcastle on their own floor, I think it was the Telewest Arena at the time, or the Metro Arena. It was an unbelievable feeling, because at the time everyone looked at Newcastle as being pretty much unstoppable, and in fact the week before I think we had lost by over 20 to that same team.
Yes.
And so for us to go and beat them on their home court, and to see that crowd, to see that Newcastle arena empty so much at the end, was just an absolute pleasure to see. apart from those few hundred Raiders fans, but it just, an interesting story is that, and it hadn't happened since or before or since, but we'd only got to Ivybridge on the coach the night before, or we left the day before, and we'd only got to Ivybridge, and I remember big Carlton Aaron and Galen Moore had a right old Barney, and had to be kind of almost like pulled apart on the coach, and for two big guys like that, they kissed and made up, not long after, but I think it was just a little bit of kind of pent up anxiety and kind of for the game, and I remember those two connected on a big man high low in the first play of the game, which led to a Carlton Aaron dunk. And from that first play of the game, that set the tone. And Carlton Aaron was unstoppable, got the MVP that game. Everybody chipped in. I think it was quite a low scoring affair, which lots of those finals kind of tend to be. But you know, I was so proud of all the guys, and obviously for Gary, I was just completely, you know, so pleased for him, because, you know, after struggling the BBL for 3 years, for him to kind of reach the top, and win that. And it's fair to say that I don't remember much of the journey home, or for about 3 or 4 days after that. But I'll leave it there.
Nice, that's nice. Right, so Pabs, what do you know about this place?
Not a thing.
That is the home of Plymouth basketball.
The Mayflower Leisure Centre.
The home of
What
Plymouth
is that?
basketball.
Is that still there today?
No, that is also now known as, well,
It's the grass outside the Life Centre.
Yeah, I was going to say.
It's up there, right?
It's a patch of grass right now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Once again, another absolutely horrible floor, which was like, I mean, the first few years at the pavilions, we basically played on polished concrete with black gaffer tape for the lines, which a lot of the import players, the Americans, just couldn't believe. You know, they used to kind of top-notch facilities, but the Mayflower was just, it was a great place to play. I remember they had these huge metal heaters that went around the outside, and it was freezing cold when they weren't turned on, but it was like a furnace when they were turned on, which everyone wanted it to be like that, because everyone's legs felt good. Everyone didn't need much to warm up. The rims were quite low, so like, you know, people like me who weren't, you know, were floor dwellers could get up, you know, get the odd dunk now and again. But yeah, I mean, I never played. I did play when I was player coach of Raiders 2. I played here, but I don't. In fact, that's a lie. No, we did play one game here against Worthing, but I didn't play many games here. There was one where there was obviously a concert on at the pavilions or something. We had to play a cup game against Worthing, but we had some absolutely brilliant. We trained here during kind of those early 2000s, and those practices were legendary. Gary used to like playing the first five against the second five. And back then we had a really, really strong second five, and we would often, if the starters weren't on their game, like we would beat the starters, you know. And so guys like me, we were all playing with chips on our shoulder because we wanted to get minutes that weekend, and so we would play hard. And you know, you had super competitive guys like Todd Setner who would call Gary the night after practice if the second unit had won, say 3-2 in games. You know, if we played up to 11 and the second unit beat the starters 3-2, Todd would call Gary Stronek and say, "Coach, same teams tomorrow, same teams tomorrow," and they'd come back and blow us out. You know, because they, you know, but it was the games back there. Sorry, the practices back then were harder for the starters than the games were. Really? You know, and they were just these games are so competitive, and everyone just wanted to, you know. Just wanted to win. I mean, I used to live for these practices, you know, because you're going up against guys that you want to take minutes from them. Yeah. You know, so it was just, you know, you ask guys like Myron Riley, Terence Durham, Todd Setner, Dean Williams, Roderick Wellington, that, you know, they'll tell you that these practices were, you know, the Mayflower were just same as the Kitto Centre. They were just hardcore, brilliant, amazing memories.
Right. So now is the time to talk about this monster of a player.
Yeah.
Terence Durham.
I mean, first of all, you've got to talk about Terence as a person, you know, because he was one of the most lovely guys that you'll ever meet. Softly spoken, everyone loved him. You know, Terence and I bonded straight away. I remember back in these days, we were, you know, if we were on the road, we were playing games on the road at kind of 7:30. We weren't leaving, you know, places like London until kind of, you know, 10, 11 o'clock at night. And we weren't going back to Plymouth until kind of 3, 4 in the morning. And so you'd have plenty of chance to talk, you know, to talk to people. And Terence and I both lost our fathers at a young age. And so right away we bonded and had many 2 a.m. conversations on the back of the coach, just about kind of what it was like growing up, without our dads. And so right away we bonded, and he, I look at Tebow, Big T, and I look at him and I just want to go back in time and play again with these guys. And Terence, as a guy, one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. As a player, just an absolute phenomenon. You almost run out of superlatives. He was 6'8", probably 17 or 18 stone, could jump out of the gym, had an absolute killer mentality when it came to physicality in the game. He would dunk on anyone. When we were in the NBL, we'd play against BBL teams, and back then you'd have BBL teams, and you could see it in their faces. They were looking at us as inferiors. But then as soon as they saw what Terence was made of, these guys were, they were like, this guy's an absolute monster. I think his best season in the BBL for us was that first season in the BBL 2004-05, and he was named to the All BBL first team. Even though we only won 12 games, he was averaging 20 points and 14 rebounds. But it was just the way he played the game. It was something that none of us at that time, none of the Raiders players, especially the young British players, we'd never been up close and personal with anyone that played like that. The first training session he came in, he used to wear super baggy jeans and Hawaiian shirts, and he'd come and then he'd take off his super baggy jeans to reveal his basketball shorts that he would train in. Take off his Hawaiian shirt, and all he'd have is like some kind of torn up vest to play in practice. And the first practice, I remember he got a put back dunk, and I'd never seen anything like it up to that point. I remember looking at Dean Williams and Roderick Wellington, and they didn't say anything, but their faces were, this guy is incredible. 6'8", but you could put him up against any player. You could say, right, go and guard that really quick 5'11", 6 foot point guard, and he would lock him up. He would move his feet. He wouldn't let this guy go anywhere. But then you put him up against a 7 foot big man, and he'd lock him down. Physically, nobody was strong enough to compete with him inside. I remember being a 19-year-old going to the gym and lifting with him, and you'd need someone to spot the spotter when somebody's spotting him when he's lifting weights, because he's lifting things in the gym and throwing weights around that for somebody in their early 20s, you just think how can anybody lift that much? He was just a physical specimen.
We need to get these clips. We need to get the clips. Pablo, you need to see the clips of this guy, because honestly, there was I
remember posting something when Lewis Sayers was playing for Raiders, and Lewis Sayers hadn't seen Terence play. He'd not seen any highlights. Remember back then, there was just less highlights, flowing around like there is now on YouTube and whatnot. And I remember showing Lewis Sayers or posting something on Facebook, and he was like, "Oh my gosh!" He was like, "Who is this guy? Like, what? Why was he playing at that level?" And it was just the fact that the way he played was like watching somebody in the NBA. It was seeing somebody with an NBA body, with NBA athleticism, with NBA ferocity, but seeing it, week in, week out at training, or day in, day out training, and week in, week out on the court. But like I said, first and foremost, what a special guy! What an unbelievably great guy.
He never averaged under 10 rebounds a game in his 3 years in the BBL.
No, I mean he's
that's crazy.
Pure and simple. He's in my opinion, Terence is from what I've seen in the BBL, and I've seen the last 20 odd years in the BBL. He's the best in his prime. He's the best rebounder I've ever seen in the BBL, offensively and defensively. Offensively, he was just an animal. You just couldn't keep him off the glass. He was too big, too strong, too athletic. But just seeing these BBL guys' faces when we played them in kind of cup competitions, they realised that they weren't in for an easy game when Terence was on the court. brilliant.
So I think we've got about 2 or 3 more slides to go. So here we go. What's next on? Oh, well, another player that I absolutely admire just because of everything about him, personality, ability. Pablo, you know about Cat Beasley or not?
No, not a great deal.
'Cause
I'll
I
be
love
honest.
this. Is what I like. This is a nice educational session as well, my friend.
I'm gonna, I don't know this for sure, but I'm going to say that Cat was probably the import that played most seasons for the Raiders. I think he must have played for 6 or 7 seasons, which obviously, and he didn't play anywhere else. His entire professional career was at Plymouth, which even back then was very, very rare. Because you'd always have players that bounced around teams in the BBL, but Cat was a one-team guy, and what a teammate! What a teammate! He was 6'7", probably one of the most versatile players Raiders have ever had. He played actually in his first year was in the NBL in Division 1, and I think he's probably one of the only guys to have ever dropped a quadruple. Well, I don't even know how to say it. Quadruple double, yeah. He had double figures in points, rebounds, assists, and blocks in a game.
Nice.
But that said it all about Cat's game. He wasn't the best at anything on the team, but he was so he wasn't the top scorer, he wasn't the top rebounder. He probably wasn't the best guy for assists, but it was like he was second in every single category.
Yeah.
He was the glue, and when Cat didn't play, we weren't the same team.
Why was he called Cat?
Wasn't
it DeAntoine?
DeAntoine Beasley. I mean, this was a nickname that he brought from the States.
Oh, is it?
Right. And he'd actually battled. I think it was Hodgkin's lymphoma in college, and won an award for kind of how he was able to fight that off and then come back and play college basketball. But it says it all about the guy, and the fact that he was so loyal to the club, and the fact that we just didn't look the same team when he was out. Hardly missed games through injury, or he seemed like he was never injured, and he was always out there. But on the odd occasion that he did miss Raiders games, we just didn't look like the same team. And obviously he was a thinker, knew lots about the game, and it was no surprise, I think, to anyone that played with him that he went on and he still is coaching Division 1 basketball. He's coached.
He's at Dayton.
Yeah, Dayton Flyers, Division 1 women's basketball for the last few years. But before that, he was an assistant at a couple of junior colleges. He was a grad assistant at Auburn. So he's been around some really big programs and played under some big time Division 1 coaches. So he'll be a head coach in college basketball in not too distant future.
Massive usage numbers as well. Like we're talking well over 1,200 minutes from the majority of his career with the Raiders. That's high usage.
This is a nice picture.
Oh, nice.
This is a nice picture. So I told you we are going to get back to Jay Marriott in a bit. So I remember this picture being taken. I think I was at this game. This was not this. I won't do it justice. So just talk us through the occasion.
Well, I mean, for me, I've got a feeling this was another game against USA Select. I'm sure this was a pre-season game. So obviously my oldest son Ashley, who's now 8, soon to be 9. He was born, I think, a couple of months, after little Noah Marriott there. And it was special for me in that was because I'd had 18 months out previous to this with an ACL. For me personally, this game, and if I'm right about this was a pre-season game that I said to myself that I really wanted to work myself back from a really serious knee injury, just to get out onto the Pavilions court and actually tell myself that I can still do it. And I I didn't play much after this, to be honest. But I think I scored about, I think maybe 10 points in this game. And it was special to do it in front of Ashley, who was only a few months old.
Yeah.
Bearing in mind that he's going to be 9 soon. And obviously, you know, Noah was a similar age, or is similar age to Ashley. So I think this is a special picture for both Jay and I. And obviously Jay and I were kind of a team as far as the coaching towards the end. Obviously I was in charge of all of the schools program since probably 2007 to when I left in 2014. And Jay kind of came on board towards the end of that. And so we would often be coaching together at a school, and you know, Jay shared my passion to kind of try and get as many kids, primary school kids in the area playing as possible. And we would often sit in the staff rooms of primary schools moaning about why neither of us are getting many minutes. I remember us doing that quite a bit, and you know, thinking, oh, you know, Jay, you were, you know, killing in practice, you know, you should play this weekend. And you know, we were going back and forth, and you know, I think we were kind of in the same boat where we both thought around that time that we could both be really kind of contributing. But yeah, for me, this was a special picture, just because obviously our boys look, you know, so cute and so young. Yeah. And it was like a proud moment for us both to kind of play, you know, to play in front of our boys for the first time.
Yeah.
And it is a little bit of a regret that my sons never got to kind of. I mean, Ashley did get to see me play, but obviously would never remember it. But that is a bit of a regret. But obviously, being a basketball player at that time for the Raiders was pretty full on. So you know, for me, it made sense to walk away so I could, you know, spend some more time with the family and kind of and be around my son, you know, a lot more. So nice picture.
Oh,
this is
mate.
This is a tough one, right?
Yeah. And in fact, it was, where are we now? The 22nd. It's 2 days ago. I mean, I'm not sure when this is going to go out, but obviously we're you know, filming this now.
Yeah.
It's the 22nd of February, and it was the 20th of February, 2011. So it was exactly 10 years ago that I did this, and this pretty much finished me off, I think. 18 months out, and came back. Had a load of niggles. I remember the season I came back from this, I was kind of, you know, way out on the periphery. I was basically there as a practice player. Still had a lot of pain. I remember I kind of had a groin problem, and it was purely, I just couldn't shake that off when I came back. And it was one of those things that you come back from a serious injury and you get all these niggles just because to go from not doing anything really for 18 months to then playing at this level, it was tough. And this pretty much was the injury that finished me off. And yeah, it's not a nice memory. And I remember exactly what led up to it. You see, makes me emotional actually thinking about Ant Rowe trying to help me up here. And I remember a few years after that, he was playing for Leicester, and you know, had a really serious knee injury himself. And I remember thinking, I wished I'd been there to help him up and, you know, return the favor. I remember Jermaine Forbes, who's in the background there, who was a great player, a great pickup for us, and a legend in the British game. He threw a little bounce pass inside to me, and you know me, Spike. I like my little drop steps, footwork, and fakes. And I faked and just did quite a young big guy playing for Essex. I got him to bite on the fake, and as I was going back up, he came down on my shoulder, and I just remember my knee just giving way from the weight, a little bit of weight on my shoulder, and just I knew right away that it had gone. And I was trying to tell myself, well, maybe it's not an ACL, but I knew right away that that was an ACL. You know, you feel the snap, and you know.
I remember that game because I remember after that game, like, no one actually thought about the basketball. Everyone was just like, "Oh my god, what? Like, I hope he's okay. I wonder what's happened. Like, it looks serious." It was like the basketball was a distant memory, but I just remember that moment, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, Essex were a team that it was always these games that I looked forward to, because I knew that the starters would get to the point where Gavin could rotate the bench. And in fact, I'd been in the game, and we were still up, and I remember Gavin took me out, and I was I'll be honest, I was fuming, because I thought, what, we're up by 25, and I'm in the, keep me in, please just keep me in so I can log some minutes. And then I remember you could see that I was annoyed, and I came back in. I think it was the fourth quarter, and I came back in, I hit a jumper, I was feeling good, and then obviously that happened, and that was a long road to recovery, and it never it never felt the same when I came back. I mean, I was never a leaper, I was never a jumper, I was never the quickest guy, but I remember coming back from that, and every time I played, I was tentative. Every time I played, I had to ice my knee because it was sore afterwards, and that eventually kind of put pay to it. But yeah, 10 years ago, almost exactly to the day.
So now this was my favorite one, and I wanted to save the best to last and finish on a light note. This is obviously pre children age, I would say. Yeah. These nights were so memorable, it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
But let's talk through the top photo first of all. well, keeping it PG-13.
Yeah, let's just say that this was a themed party.
Mm-hmm.
Very specific theme.
Yeah.
That we were going for. So you've got you've got Myron on the left, we kind of gave each other.
He looks like Dennis Rodman.
That's a bit.
So he that night he was the self-proclaimed Purple Rain. I remember we basically went into, there used to be in Ebrington Street, there used to be a fancy dress shop.
Yeah. And
we went in there and just picked out the most horrendous outfits we could. The PG-13 version of D'Antoine's name was Mr. Skinny, and then mine was Boss Hog, for those of you that can remember.
Boss Hog.
The Dukes of Hazzard.
Yeah, good stuff.
So yeah, that was to celebrate my birthday it would have been my 25th birthday in November 2004. Mm-hmm. So that would have been somewhere on Derry's Cross, I imagine.
So the bottom picture is, I was really annoyed because actually this night I was also out, and I went home before this happened, so I was very frustrated. But this was Ricky Hatton.
It is. So this was hilarious. This was in View 2, and I remember people were saying, we knew that Ricky Hatton was doing, he almost did, like, in between fights, because he was still active here as a fighter. We all know Ricky Hatton used to pile on the pounds.
Oh yeah.
And you can see in his face, this was kind of in his off
in
time,
between, yeah.
In between fight. And so he did a stand-up show. He was kind of an aspiring comedian, and he did a show at the Pavilions, and obviously went out afterwards, and so we bumped into him, and I remember we kind of went and had a picture, and I remember I can't say exactly the words he said, but it went along the lines of with the, I mean, you think of Terence Durham there at 6'8", Myron J and I at 6'5" each. The words were somewhere along the lines of, I feel like I'm in a blimmin' hole, or standing in a blimmin' hole, just because he's not the tallest guy.
That's not.
And I remember after a couple of drinks, or you're a little bit loose-lipped, and I said, Ricky, I said, if I jumped on your back right now, like how long? I'm quite a big guy. I said, if I jumped on your back and wrapped you up right now, like how long do you reckon it would be before I was seeing stars? And he just said, seconds. And the interesting thing, this very day, I think he signed the contract for the fight against Manny Pacquiao.
Yeah. Oh.
And so that very day, like, it was all announced that he was fighting Manny Pacquiao, and I think he'd already been knocked out. If I'm right, he'd already been knocked out by Floyd Mayweather.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And so this was between the Mayweather and the Pacquiao fight, and I remember, because I'd read that he'd like to drink, so I bought him a beer, and I said, "Oh, Ricky, buy you a beer, legend boxer," and he said, "No, can't do it." And from obviously, because they announced the Pacquiao fight, from then on he was all business, and obviously
Wow.
got into shape. So that was a pretty memorable night. I remember putting that on, and Facebook was like a new thing. It's probably 2008, and Facebook was quite a new thing. And I remember putting that on, and people were like, "Oh my God, like, where was this? Like, was this obviously in Plymouth? Like, what's the story behind this?" I remember Ali Gore being like, "How come I missed out on this?" Like, he was fuming that he wasn't out with us, and B, that he had missed like the chance to kind of have a chat with Ricky Hatton, who was like one of Britain's biggest sportsmen at the time. So,
Birch, look, that was amazing. It went on quite a while, but you know what? I don't care. It was fantastic. It was good to reminisce about that stuff.
I'm looking at the time now, and
I'm just worried how long this is going to take me to flip and upload. Pablo,
Yes,
I know it's, probably me and Birch got into it a little bit too much and reminisced too much, but over to you, my friend.
Over to me. What for?
Well, finish it off, mate.
What can be left to say other than, yeah, all right, yeah. Other than thank you very much, Mr. Jamie Burchell.
no problem. And I want to, as soon as we're allowed to, which obviously with the Prime Minister's announcement tonight, hopefully the fans will be able to get back to the pavilions as soon as possible. And I'm sure it'll be nice for the current players who haven't played at the pavilions, in front of a crowd. I think they'll get a very nice surprise, as the Raiders fans are the best in the country. And when that place is full and that place is absolutely rocking, there is no better place anywhere to play. So I wish the Raiders they've got a legendary coach who, I came up against, many times when he was at Thames Valley and Guildford, and they've obviously got a really, really talented squad this year, and looking forward to seeing what they can do, especially with a crowd cheering them on.
Yeah, for sure. No, Birch, thank you very much. Pablo,
No problem.
thank you, my friend.
Hopefully see you
Pleasure.
in the pavilion soon.
Game on.